I'm Anne Green, and welcome to We've Got Books. We're coming to you from Dallas, Texas, where the drawl is strong, the state huge, and a church and a restaurant sit on every corner. Today, I will be your host. We're brimming with books, ideas, and plenty of fun. We have a genre for you: historical and contemporary romance, romantic comedy, Western, suspense, women's fiction, Westerns again, and side splitting humor. It's our pleasure to feature guest authors and their books, as well as my own books. You'll have the opportunity to get to know real authors and how we create memorable characters. And today, I'm all set to interview famous author Joni Fisher. So grab your cola, a cup of coffee or tea, and sit back and enjoy this riotous ride into the literary world. So tell me about yourself, Joni.
Well, I love to read and I love to learn new things. My favorite books are mystery, romance, and suspense. I wrote for my college daily newspaper and then worked as a technical writer at a Fortune 500 bank while my husband was in medical school. After we moved to Florida, I wrote for magazines and newspapers, and I also taught at a local police academy and edited for two small publishing houses. The first two book-length manuscripts I wrote didn't reach publication. They're buried. One kind agent's rejection letter said that she enjoyed my writing, but couldn't figure out whose story it was. Well, there were 8 points of view. I mean, I was handing them out like candy. So I studied storytelling for a few more years, and then the next stories started earning awards and high ratings from readers.
Yes, we all had to learn the craft of writing. So, what sort of Christian fiction do you write?
I write Christian suspense. I've always been attracted to crime, and some of my stories have a romantic subplot. All of them feature friendship, family, faith, and crime, and I have strong heroes who don't wait around to be rescued.
I do love strong heroines. I wonder, what is a unique thing about you that you would like our listeners to know?
I'm an instrument-rated private pilot. Only 6% of pilots are women. Aviation magazine editors started calling me to write stories for them, but now I write exclusively for general aviation news.
Interesting. My husband is also an instrument rated training pilot, and we love flying from place to place, just the two of us. So, Joni, is there something else unique about you that would surprise people if they knew?
Yeah, I think my friends are, when I tell them, they kind of laugh, but I took an IQ test on a dare from my brothers and qualified for Mensa, the High IQ Society. When I was younger, my family moved once a year or more during my childhood, so I missed algebra. In my senior year of high school, I took remedial math from the same teacher who taught calculus to my younger brother, who was a freshman. That was pretty humbling.
That is so interesting. Joni, I can't believe how similar we are. I too am a member of Mensa, and I had to take remedial math in college. You're the first writer I've come across with both those accomplishments. I feel quite sisterly toward you. But
Aw.
back to books. What book are we discussing today?
This is the third book in my 4-book Compass Crime series. It's called West of Famous. The premise is that a young woman takes a job as a celebrity double and gets kidnapped. The heroine in West of Famous can't tell anyone she's a double because the real celebrity is secretly in rehab. She has a, non-disclosure agreement. So she's forced to pretend to be the celebrity while trying to find a way to escape from a boat anchored among the 10,000 islands south of the Everglades. The area is so remote that it was used to run rum from Cuba during Prohibition. And in the 1970s, drug runners brought cocaine and marijuana from South America to Florida through these waters. I think they called them square grouper when they dropped these bales. And for that book, I studied the stages of grief and used them to show the young woman's emotional journey through her ordeal. denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Her faith is tested to the extreme, and when she surrenders her fate to God in that acceptance stage, she finds peace and a crazy, risky plan to escape.
West of Famous sounds delightfully shivery. So, how many books have you written?
I've written 8. 2 were given a proper burial, 5 were published, and 1 comes out in October.
I love a bit of humor with suspense and enjoy how you refer to your 2 unpublished books as buried. So, what is West of Famous's takeaway?
That no matter how deep and dark and hopeless it seems, you're never alone, and God provides.
I think David, the Shepherd King, would approve that takeaway, since he mentioned that truth in so many of his Psalms. And what is West of Famous's theme?
I really like the verse that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Because faith is the opposite of fear, and fear attacks the heart, and doubt attacks the mind, but faith can overcome both.
I couldn't agree more. I think our listeners would like to know if you learned something interesting during your research for West of Famous.
Yes, something I learned during research. Conducting research is the best part of writing. I mean, it's my favorite part. I study the topic, the setting, the characters, and the crime. And then I find an expert and do field research. So for West of Famous, the field research involved staying on a trawler for a week to ask 100 of stupid questions about navigation, features of the boat, and how to sabotage one. I learned about people who live on boats and call themselves loopers. There's this big national organization. And the host couple who owned the boat, Paul and Karen Frank, even helped me walk through important parts of the story. They let me ride in the engine hold while underway, and they took me to this creepy remote place to drop anchor. I even scream tested it. It was so remote. It's like nobody came. It was just wildlife and us. It's not the kind of place you want to have engine trouble. And after the first draft, they also fact checked the manuscript. They let me use the name of their boat in the story. And I mean, I could not have created a better name. It was Seeker. Seeker to me sounded like 2 words, seek her, which is perfect because it's the girl kidnapped. At the end of the week on board, I knew my aft from my starboard. And when I returned home, I realized I was swaying while I was brushing my teeth. And when I laid down, it felt like the bed was rolling. So I called Karen about it, and she laughed, and she said I'd get my land legs back in a day. And she was right. Months after the book came out, Karen and Paul invited me to a boating rendezvous in Norfolk, Virginia. The president of the America's Great Cruise Loopers Association had read my book and loved it. So Karen said, bring books, and I did a book signing on a boat.
Now that's unique. A book signing on a boat named in your book? Sounds
Yes,
like you made friends as well as wrote a great suspense.
and
Our
they let me
pardon?
use their names in the book as well as minor characters.
Oh, really? Yeah, good. Our listeners always like the author to read an excerpt of the books we discuss.
Okay. This is an excerpt in West of Famous. Vincent Gunnarsson entered an interview room at the Jacob Javits building, the New York office of the FBI, where 2 women in business suits sat across the table from Special Agent Lenny Lorenzo. A normally gregarious guy, Lenny was so Italian through and through, people joked he couldn't talk with his hands tied. Lenny clasped his hands on the table and looked at Vincent with uncharacteristic weariness. Vincent shut the door and took a chair beside Lenny. These ladies are Mrs. Campbell and Miss Chen. They claim they have urgent information to share about a video Mrs. Campbell received this morning at 10. Lenny's tone suggested the ladies were wasting his time. When I asked them why they waited until 3 in the afternoon to share this information, they said they would share it only after we met certain conditions. Ladies, this is Special Agent Vincent Gunnarsson. Their conditions? Vincent eyed Mrs. Campbell, a 40-ish woman with blonde upswept hair and large, clunky jewelry. She wore a white silk low-cut blouse under a bright green jacket. Miss Chen had jet black shoulder-length hair and looked 30 years old tops. Dressed in all black, Chen hunched over her smartphone, repeatedly brushing her fingers across the screen. Mrs. Campbell squared her shoulders and addressed Vincent. We get crazy fan mail all the time, and this is the first. We want you to verify that this message is a hoax. So far, we haven't found it posted on any social media, but if word gets out there, well, we want to be able to say that the FBI says it's a hoax. She nudged her companion. Nothing on social media so far. Miss Chen looked up at Vincent and sat up straighter. She sneaked a peek at Vincent's left hand. Vincent did not reciprocate because he didn't care if she was single or married. He turned his attention toward Lenny instead. Have you seen the urgent message? Nope. Lenny tapped his pen on a pad of paper. The corners of his mouth twitched, signaling that he had noticed Mrs. Chen's sudden shift of attention. What is it you do that generates fan mail? Vincent asked Miss Campbell, who seemed to have authority over the younger woman. Oh, not us, our client. Miss Campbell whispered as if the entire office might be eavesdropping. We also need your word that whatever happens, our client won't be named in the news. Lenny leaned his elbows on the table. We don't control the news. What's your client's name? Vincent asked. They don't want to say, Lenny deadpanned. They aren't lawyers evoking client confidentiality. In fact, they're from the Campbell Agency. They represent, he said, sliding a business card across the tabletop to Vincent, performing artists. Performing artists was vague enough to encompass actors, dancers, musicians, or those self-proclaimed performance artists who occasionally took their clothes off in Central Park and smeared paint on each other while shouting poetry. Vincent sighed. So, are you going to hand over your entire client list and make us guess which one you're talking about? Or do you only have one client? Mrs. Campbell arched an unnaturally dark eyebrow at Vincent. Do we have your word we'll keep this out of the press? No, Vincent and Lenny answered at once. Mrs. Chen glared at Mrs. Campbell until the older woman squirmed. Our client is Ruby. We need her full name, Lenny said with his pen poised over a legal pad. Oh, come on, Mrs. Campbell said. She's had 2 platinum albums. She looked at Mrs. Chen as if for confirmation that everyone in the world recognized the name. Miss Chen shook her head. Wrong demographic. To Vincent, she said, Roxanne Wharton is a pop singer. She's known as Ruby. Lenny bristled. All right, so you have a video fan message you want us to prove is a hoax. Did you take it to the police? Mrs. Campbell leaned forward. I thought the FBI handled kidnappings.
Well, I'm sucked into reading West of Famous. Joni, do you have a newsletter or a website where listeners can find your information?
Yes, my website is jonimfisher.com. And on the homepage of my website, people can sign up for my newsletter. It doesn't come out, I think it's like every other month it comes out because I'm pretty busy writing. So that's about as often as it'll enter in anybody's mailbox.
Okay. Sounds like a great place for listeners to go.
Thank you.
Well, listeners, once again, our time has whizzed by. We hope you've enjoyed your time with Joni and me as much as we enjoyed having you. Join us next week when we interview well-known author Jeanette Fudge Messmer, discussing her well-crafted comedy, Mouse in My Pocket. Listeners, we're so glad you joined us. Don't forget to go to buzzsprout.com, that's BUZZSPROUT.com, to We've Got Books, and enjoy some of our 50 other podcasts with different authors. You can also find our podcasts on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast host. Or you can go to my website, Anne Green Author. That's ANNEGREENEAUTHOR.com, and click on the podcast tab. Our books are as distinct from one another as the authors who wrote them are different. All of our podcasts are short, fun, and introduces you to other authors and books. And remember, read a good book for education, for a boost in your day, or just for pure fun. We hope you'll choose a book you learned about right here on We've Got Books. See you next time. Keep reading.